What's going on, good people? Welcome to the new episode of the Paul Rivera Podcast. I think, for like long-time listeners and viewers, depending on how you consume the podcast, I normally open up the show by kind of saying the same thing of saying like, a very good friend or a dear friend, a longtime friend or family. And that's true in all cases because I haven't really had anyone on the show that's just like a guest. I have a relationship or have known everyone. But this guest, Jed Berger, I've known going close to around 20 years, I believe.
That's right.
But let me give you the proper introduction. Jed Berger, CMO of Foot Locker, Inc. Jed, what's up? Thanks for being on the show, man.
Man, I feel like there's some nepotism here. Your other guests, there's like Mav, there's like Draymond, there's a couple billionaires, and then there's Jed Berger.
And there's Jed Berger. Jed, we're old, man. If we've known each other going on 20 years, we got to be old. Shit.
Yo, I would have said that like I knew you when you had hair, but now you have hair again.
It's the flip.
I'm
it's the
totally torn. I'm totally torn. I'm totally thrown off by you with hair.
Oh my God! Listen, I wanna go through your journey. It's been a super interesting journey. At least I want to go for where it starts with our relationship, right?
Yeah.
I want to go back to Dime magazine, which seems like 1,000 years ago. Seems like a blur. Yeah. But like, at least for me, it's such an incredible time. Like, how'd you get to Dime? How'd the Dime thing come about for you?
Yeah, so I was in college at GW, and I was sort of like doing the intern and hustle thing, and I was doing a lot of intern work for a company called Sports America that at the time owned the McDonald's All-American game, and the Reebok Capital Classic, which is now the Jordan Brand Classic, and all these different things, and the company Hoops TV sort of started coming into, which was owned by And One. It sort of started coming into the Sports America space, and Hoops TV was way ahead of its time. It was like buying up the rights to high school basketball tournaments and footage, and airing it online for a fee. The problem was that everybody was on dial-up and stuff, and couldn't and just couldn't watch it. But they had amazing content, and this was sort of in the .com era, with and they had amazing content, and they had this really popular piece called The Smack, which was immensely popular. And when Hoops TV sort of went down and lost the money, I knew those guys, and they wanted to take the content and editorial platform that was so popular into a magazine that was digitally led, but also in print. That was sort of the idea behind it. Something that was for a person like us at the time, where it was like 21, 22, 23-year-old people who loved the culture of the game and wanted something beyond just the on-court performance of it to dive into. So we decided. So there was, at the time, there was 4 of us, and we decided to create. Dime. We were all set to move to Philly. And I was literally visiting Philly, looking at apartments, and then I was going to meet up. I met up with them I met up with the guys in New York, and they were like, "We got a gig doing some content work for ESPN in New York. It's going to help us get a little bit further. So we're renting out office space with a top New York City modeling agency. There's no walls." And I'm like, "Holy shit! I'm 22 years old. I'm about to move to New York City, work in basketball, and there's going to be models walking around all day long. I have life made."
Mama, I made it
at 22. So Dime was born, and we started off as a quarterly basketball magazine, and we picked up the editorial piece of The Smack and brought it over to Dime, and it, like, honestly, it was one of these things that picked up speed really quickly. The problem was none of us had any publishing experience whatsoever. It actually took us a long time that we only made money when we actually printed things. So because we were selling ads, none of us were even people who sold ads. We were all really from a content and creative perspective. So we had to learn how to be publishing and business and sales guys, and and entrepreneurs, and basically admins all at the same time, because there was nobody. We had, we were a startup, and we were scrappy, and we figured it all out. And and over time, Dime grew to something that was really meaningful to the hoop head, one of our bigger name partners was like, listen, we can't have Dime magazine being the agency doing some of these activations. We're like, oh, we should start an agency.
Right. And that's before agencies were like a thing. Like
that was before every single editorial and content organization, like, and now every .com, every popular blog, traditional blog and .com and sort of media agency has a content and creation agency wing to them. We actually went from publishing company to, we actually had an online network of sites, because that was the other thing. People were selling us ads online, and they wanted us to deliver more impressions than we had. But there was this big hoop community of websites like Hoops Hype, Real GM, these sites that were run by really passionate hoop heads, but they didn't have the brand partnership connections that we did. So before ad networks was a thing, we were like, let's go get them. Mm-hmm. There's actually an amazing article about Hoops Hype eventually got bought for $1 million or $2 million, and it was run by this guy Jorge Sierra, who I believe when he started was running it out of his like grandmother's basement or something like that. And he had the greatest rumor section, and he still does. And we got him onto our ad network and started making him money and got him more notoriety. And he eventually sold it. And there's a Wall Street Journal article where he's like talking about it. He's like, some guy named Jed called me. That was his turning point. That was the turning point of Jorge Sierra in his grandparents' basement in, I think, Spain, publishing Hoops Hype rumors.
Hey, just a bottle of wine to Jed Berger saying thank you would have been nice.
Exactly. I would have taken at that point, I would have taken a check. I would have taken anything. Thank you.
Let me ask you this, Jed. I want to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that, listen to this show, are young entrepreneurs trying to figure it out, trying to, get on and follow their passions. I didn't even know this part of it, having joined you guys much, much later after you guys were established.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Talk a little bit about you guys didn't spend 3 years working on the business plan and the strategy. You guys kind of dove in and kind of figured it out as you went along. Can you talk a little bit of what the pros and cons to that strategy were?
Yeah, man. It's a funny because in my position now, I think I have a balance of still being, I really consider myself still an entrepreneur. And I work for a very big company, right? I think what has gotten me to this point was the combination of all that. I think the combination of sort of the get it done hustle experience, plus the need to turn that into some polish and strategy has really helped me. But at the end of the day, problem solving and seeking opportunities came from, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have survived. It was just, there's a fine line between being an entrepreneur and being someone who's trying to survive in the real world. So I think, not having that polish, but having a vision and having a great idea. I always tell everybody, great ideas trump everything. So there was a gap in the basketball community. I mean, you look at how much basketball as a culture has exploded today. Dime was the game, the player, the life. That was the slogan, the basketball lifestyle magazine. It had a place. The agency was 94 by 50. It just celebrated the game off court and on. We understood a gap in the market. We just didn't, and attacked it. We just didn't have a plan that was built out from A to Z. It would have helped, by the way. It would have helped. Now, I always say that. You leave a job, you get to a new one, and you get more experience. You get more and more, you learn more and more, and you're like, oh, if I could do that year over again. Oh, if I could do that job over again. But again, I don't know if I would be where I am today without that entrepreneurial and get it done mentality that I built during my time there.
Speaking of not knowing if you'd be where you are today if you didn't have that time, on most of my shows, I'll always ask whoever the guest is, hey, what was like the younger version of you 15 years ago, 10 years ago? I'm going to put myself in the hot seat, and I'm going to ask you, because I don't know if people realize this. Dime was my first job.
Yeah.
My first real job. And it was like later in life, like I was trying to play ball and do these things, but it was my first job.
Yeah.
What was younger professional PR like at Dime Magazine? You know, you having to deal with all my bullshit and everything. What was a young version of me at Dime?
Okay.
Be kind.
So first of all, complete asshole on the court. On the court, just total asshole.
hey, I remember times we'd play, I'd give you a pass, Jed.
Oh, boy.
Missed a layup. You missed a layup or miss a shot, and I'd be like, damn it, Jed. And you'd bark back, you think I'm trying to stay front of my back? Get off my back, Pete.
I hate to say it, that's a memory. You know, so first of all, you have always had a skill set that cannot be taught. Always. Your ability to connect to a wide variety of people is unmatched, and you had it then. And your and communication and the gift of gab and will only take you so far, and you and I both know that.
Of course.
That has to be combined with the vision of seeing where, again, it's problem solving and opportunity, and you have always had both those things. And the thing that separated you from other people was, I hate to use it in a basketball term, but people always say like effort is a skill, and you and I both know that from being in the world for 20 years. Yeah, I mean, effort is a damn skill. You have to know how to bust your ass. And the other thing you have to have, and even though you didn't have this on the court, you had tremendous humility off of it. You knew what you didn't know. You were willing to be humble to people below you, the same level as you and ahead of you. You were willing to do what it took to get shit done. And I swear that's what got I like to think of myself as the same way. I like to think of myself as that, having those same core values that I had then. Like humility, I want to say that I still have it. Problem solving, I want to say I still have it. And somebody who's an opportunity seeker, I want to say I still have it. And somebody who's willing to bust their ass. You know, at that point, you and I were going to the bank multiple times a week. We were doing intern shit because that's what it took to get shit done. And I know you and I will tell a story about that exact same thing. And that example, I set that example today, and I think that's what you had and I had and got us to where we are today. And I think the only thing that gets added in over time is life perspective, experience, and things that really stressed me out in the workplace and probably stressed you out in the workplace don't, because you've widened your aperture to both work experience and personal experiences, and you've been able to develop a balance. Jordan, you have a kid, you've seen, you have a 15-year-old that you have
real life shit.
And then you come home and you can't be overwhelmed with the problem that's going to be there tomorrow anyway, because by the way, you got mouths to feed, people to get to bed, values to teach. And, and that can't be taught.
Yep. It's super interesting, Jed. It's like, I think back to those Dime days, and it's like, the core group we had there, everyone.
It's amazing.
All the things you said, right? Everyone worked really hard. Everyone was respectful of each other. Everyone was helpful to each other, right? I don't know how many times I had to shoot or something, and you're helping carry something to the truck, and you're a partner there. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think through.
We did play a lot of video games.
Yeah, true.
And there was a lot of road shenanigans.
Very true. Very true. So why do you think, let me ask this, why do you think such a small, because at any given time, do we have 20 people working there? Right, it was a small shop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's somewhere around there, right?
Yeah.
15 to 25 people, something like that, give or take on any time. What has come out of there in terms of where people have gone, right? You're an executive at a very large, very successful company. Pat being an executive at a really big, successful brand, and Justin owning his own business, and everyone.
Alex Ten.
Alex, Aaron. I mean,
these guys. These are people. An executive at Spotify. The COO, the now CEO of Slam, who was very well trained in his job beforehand, by the way.
Yep. For sure. But like Pat at Newbound, that's not a coincidence. That's not What do you think? What do you think it was about Dime and that environment we were in that helped all of us propel us to whatever was to come for our careers?
Well, yeah. First of all, I think it starts with we had the right idea. We had a great idea. We were well respected in the marketplace for having a great idea. It took grit, hustle, and humility to get all that done. Those values will take you to great places. Great idea plus the right values to accomplish those great ideas will take you to amazing places. Great values trumps great talent every time. You can, you can, if you have low talent, if you have high talent, but you're a low value employee, it makes that person very hard to get rid of, but also makes that person very hard to work with amongst the rest of the peers. Great values and good talent is somebody everybody wants to work with, and increases the level of talent of everybody around them. And I think that we had really good talent, but we had even better values from the people. And that's why we were successful. And that's why all of them have been individually unbelievably successful.
Yeah. It's funny,
Matt, including yourself.
Thank you. No, it's as I was preparing for this, I was thinking, I'm like, man, we weren't a company that had, 2,000 employees, right? We were a company that had 20 on a good, year, to see where everyone's gone and the impact. By the way, people listening to this show or watching this show, they've probably been influenced, worked with, have consumed some content, have enjoyed a product, have seen a piece of advertising, have listened, like from someone that came from Dime. Like, it's really bizarre when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's funny, Mav always says that success affords you one opportunity to do it on a bigger platform, right? Yeah. And I feel like that's how we all, that was our evolution at Dime, where it was like, with success came other opportunities, and we all had tough decisions to make. I don't know if you even remember this. I remember Nike, speaking of the humility and stuff like that, I had forged a relationship with people at Nike that till this day I have. And I remember them calling me and telling me, hey, there's a very entry-level position available at Nike. You'd have to interview for it, but we think you'd be great at it. And they're like, we'll send you the JD. I had no idea what a JD was. I'm like, who's JD, And I'm super excited, and they send the job description, and I'm like so deflated. And I'm so deflated because it might as well have been a foreign language. I didn't understand what they were asking of the job. And I told you, and I told Justin, our friend Justin Leonard, shout out to Justin, I said, I'm not even going to interview. And you guys are like, what are you, crazy? Like, why not? And I'm like, I can't do any of this shit. And you guys look at it, you're like, dude, not only can you do that, you've been doing that.
You'll crush it. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been doing that. You just don't know that what out of home means. You've been doing that. You've been doing these things. You've been doing seating. You've been doing, so I almost feel like that was like really like school for us on different levels of learning our craft and learning how to, interact with people and brands and stuff like that. You had a bunch of opportunities, obviously, that you turned down. And then one that you decided to take, finally was, you did Models from Dime, right?
Yeah.
What did you do at Models? What was your role there?
So I was probably 27 about, and, we had been doing work. I mean, actually, one of the best projects that you and I worked on together was Everlast.
Yes.
I mean, president and CEO of Everlast, who when he was there, is still a great friend of both PR and mine. Shout out Seth. He really needed help turning boxing into a lifestyle, and that's what we did. We turned their catalog into what they called at the time a magalog, but we We created absolutely incredible content with some of the greatest boxers that have ever lived. And Pierre and I have spent real time with some amazing boxers, with some unbelievable fights. But you and I sat next to it was Jermaine Taylor's family when he was out by Kelly Pavlik to lose the belt. You spent time with Jermaine Taylor in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Arkansas, yes.
I spent 2 days with Mickey Ward in Boston, and
that's right.
And so anyway, Seth went on to become president of Modell's and called me and was like, listen, I am putting together an entirely new leadership team. Like, this company's down seven years in negative traffic. It needs a total everything redo. I need you. And he's like, I'm going to make you the senior vice president of marketing. Modell's a privately owned company, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, the oldest sporting goods company in the world. And he's like, I'm going to make you senior vice president of the company and of marketing of the company. And I need you. I'm like, dude, to your point, I've never worked in retail. I'm working for not exactly a $700 million company right now. But at the same time, it wasn't something I believed I should turn down. And I thought that I had the right mix of, again, humility, knowing what I didn't know and be willing to ask those questions, and knowing the difference between a great idea and a not great idea, and having a business acumen that I had been built from starting up a business over 6-7 years. So I spent 2 years at Modell's, and we did amazing things in those 2 years. I'm really proud of all the things that we did during that time. And again, I was 27 years old to become SVP of marketing of a company that of that size was unheard of.
Yeah. And then you leave Modell's to go to Foot Locker.
Yes. So then I was there for literally 2 years to the day.
Wow.
And I had two really good offers. I was looking for next. It was time. Even after 2 years, I knew it was time. Sometimes and I had a job as senior director of marketing at Under Armour in Baltimore, or I had the job offer of vice president of marketing for Foot Locker and Kids Foot Locker. Honestly, I thought we didn't, as a family, we didn't want to move from New York, which was a big thing. That was really there was other things obviously, but the Foot Locker job made more sense. And again, I went from a privately held, family-owned company that was not $1 billion to a publicly traded, very significant sized portfolio company, which for me was just, I thought, another point of good education in my trajectory. And again, I'm 30 years old at this point.
What allowed you to make, because those are significant jumps, Jed, right? From a business that's not making hundreds of million dollars to Modell's that's, making a lot of money, hundreds of millions, to a multi-billion-dollar company. What do you think allowed you to make that jump and really be successful, from day one, and making that adopting to those new roles?
First of all, in our jobs, it does take, I talk about humility, but it also talks it does take some confidence in yourself, and again, that also, I think, came with, I think that confidence. And I remember the moment at Modell's where we were flying, and I remember the moment it started to go downhill and people started pointing every single finger at everybody, including myself. And I remember not having the life perspective I'd never felt that before. I'd never been under and reacting to that was a really good experience for me, because in what we do, you're gonna miss, and you got to be on the offense, and relying on, and very quickly learning on who I could rely on amongst my team to help me, and other people in the organization to help me get there. So I think it's maybe cliche to say, but failing a little bit, learning how to keep my confidence and keep being on the offense, and knowing that I'm going to fail again and people are going to blame you, and cool, blame me. That's the way it works. I'll take that blame. I'll be the one to say I'm sorry. But you got to keep going. You got to keep pushing ideas. You got to keep pushing everybody forward.
I remember, having a conversation with you and just asking you a couple months into your role at Foot Locker, your first role. And I was like, hey man, like, how are you liking it? Like,
yeah,
because of all the differences and all these things and, where we've come from and all that. And your answer to me, I don't know if you remember, you're like, I'm having the most fun of my life. Right. What was it at Foot Locker when you first got there, at least, that was like very fun? I mean, you're doing the ads and everything just felt like very fresh, and Foot Locker, there was like a humor to the spots, but like, authentic connectivity. What was it, that made you feel, almost like alive again and having fun, enjoying going to work?
Well, first of all, I've said this about Foot Locker, and even though we've had changes over time, Foot Locker itself is a high value organization. Like, there is just really good humans as the leaders of the company. There was then, there is now, and that has a trickle down effect. And like, it's just filled with really good people with really good intention. So I felt like I was at a place with shared values. And that was really, that makes you want to work hard and makes you want to bring in the right people. And I was given a lot of autonomy. Honestly, I was given a lot of confidence. Like, I remember saying back then, like, first few years, like, nobody said, don't do that, Jed. Like, the interesting thing is that I actually made a lot more actual decisions in that role than I do in this role. Like, actual decisions. I actually influence a lot of big decisions today. But I'm not necessarily the one actually making the day-to-day call on things, because I have great people around me below, and that's just sort of the way it works when you get to my level. Like, you're never, in fact, many times now, I don't get something all the way that I would want it. It's usually, it's a success if I get it 70 to 80% the way I would have wanted it. And that's okay. Then there's so many decisions to make that you're just making the call, because because the people who work for you rely on it. And so I really did it, just like I enjoy this now in different ways. I really enjoyed that. And I just also the subject, sneakers, sports, basketball, culture, personality, storytelling, and tying that into the business, which I think I've gotten better at over time, is something that I love. It's a great subject. It's fun to think about,
And I know that's your life too. It's like, literally, like, if someone saw our text exchange, it's those things you mentioned. It's sneakers, it's basketball, it's culture. It's, that's what our lives.
We just added family in.
Exactly. We've built our lives around, right? So, it always seems to feel like whenever we feel we have life figured out, there's a higher power that's like, oh, you thought you had it figured out? Cool. There's this thing called COVID. Let me know how you deal with that, right? Like, how have you guys as a company, I'm not talking numbers because everyone's trying to figure it out and do better and all those things. Just, how have you guys rallied as a company to get through COVID as best you can?
Well, I'm super proud of the company again. Nick Johnson, who's the CEO, is just a phenomenal human, and he's just he's such a caring person. We have it's a very, very, Foot Locker Inc. is a very, very, very well run business. It has not been easy at all. None of this has been easy. The last 6 months have been incredibly hard. Past COVID, we have an unbelievably diverse associate base and diverse customers we serve, and it's been really intense. It has been really intense, and but the company has, it's been honest, and the intentions have been right, and the values are right, and I think that I think that the decisions that we've made are proof of that.
Love it. Let me ask you, so like I said, you and I have known each other going on 20 years or whatever it is at this point. You stop counting at a certain point. So you stop putting candles on the birthday cake after a certain point, right? You called me, I think we were talking about basketball, probably, or football or something. And you hit me like with an FYI, by the way, I think I just got promoted. And I was like, well, what do you mean? You're like, oh, I'm a CMO. And I'm like, I thought you already were the CMO. Like, so explain to me a little bit. We were talking about this before we started the show. You're CMO of Foot Inc. How has your role changed, and what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so I was so we didn't have, when I was a head of marketing for Foot and Kids, we didn't have a CMO. So I should start. So Foot Locker Inc. owns Foot Locker, Kids Foot Locker, Lady Foot Locker, Champs, Foot Action, East Bay, a division in Europe called Runners Point, another division in Europe called Sidestep, and then we also have a incubator platform that we launched called Greenhouse. So people don't, we've done some things intentional to make sure people know that we are that entire ecosystem. So before I was just leading the brands, Foot Locker and Kids Foot Locker. Then I was the North American CMO, overseeing all of the North American portfolio. And now, and I was the first CMO we had, and we didn't have a global. And now I just got promoted recently to global CMO. And I'm actually surprised about how much the job has changed, to be honest with you. And other things in our organization have changed. I think we're really focused right now. You and I have talked about how much marketing has changed. I actually have a bunch of very really interesting things that report into me that aren't just marketing. I have a product creation unit. That I have two product creation units that report into me, one on a commercial scale and one on an energy scale. And now an actual product development team reports up through me too.
Oh, wow.
So, for me, I'm continuing to be challenged with new pieces of the business that change and continue to move me along in both my career and keep me fresh, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I talked to you beforehand. I'm like, whatever we talk about today is probably better than anything I talked about before this, because it was a hard day. It was a hard day. But there are problems that I'm excited about tackling, and people I'm excited about working with, and new challenges that I'm still learning every single day. It's incredible. I cannot believe I've been at Foot 9 years, which is insane to me. It's
been that long?
Yeah, we're
9
old.
years?
We're old, dude.
Jesus. Speaking of evolution, you just mentioned, Greenhouse. I know how important, this idea has been to you all along and how much work you've gone into it. Can you talk a little bit about like what Greenhouse is, and maybe equally or more importantly, why you felt the need and the time for it was right now?
Yeah, so we started talking about Greenhouse a couple of years ago, and one of the Foot Inc. Foot Inc. is a big company, and it's perceived as a big company. And while the world gets a little bit closer to culture, sometimes with a lot of those creators and smaller companies, we're sort of we have the potential to look a little bit scary, and some people perceive mass sometimes as a problem to their own personal brand, but at the same time, we need to evolve, and so much of our business is done with a core group of amazing brands that there's a Nike, Adidas, the Pumas, the Converse, the Vans, etc. And so many people at our company are working with those, and they drive such a huge amount of our revenue that it's really hard for people to take their focus and work with these smaller entities. And so part of the reason that they're scared is because they really haven't gotten the attention to be brought along in the ecosystem. But it's really important for us to bring those people to bring those companies in and to learn from them and to introduce them to our consumers. Our customers want them. So we started a company called Greenhouse that I originally said I didn't even want breathing our own air, and they breathe our air now. But we brought a whole entirely new team to sort of start changing the narrative and the conversation with the community that's much closer to culture, and to not just work with our own brand partners at times and do some awesome, meaningful, purposeful things that could or could not develop into bigger ideas along in the future. But also not just work in that collaboration space with our current vendors, but also cultivate relationships with people that could become actual standalone brands within our ecosystem over time, but without the pressure of them having to be $1 million, $10 million, $20 million, $100 million brands in the first year. It can bring them along at their pace and their speed, and help them overcome some of the either fears that they had about us, or some of the logistical things that are just really hard to tackle as a young startup brand. So for me, it allowed me to get back to my entrepreneurial roots a little bit. I brought in an unbelievable leader named Mel Peralta, who reminds me of you.
Mel's a good dude.
But he, honestly, PR, he reminds me of you. He is an incredible communicator, and he's somebody that he's somebody that everybody wants to spend time with and work with. He's an incredible relationship person, and I say, and that makes it sound like it's inauthentic, but it's not. He's just authentically a great person. I describe you the same way. You're just authentic. You authentically connect to people. And Mel is the same way. And I think he is the perfect person to bridge the gap to really small companies. Whether it's like tomorrow, we have a launch with a small company a small, really trendy company out of LA, Carrots, which is amazing, and Crocs, which is a company that we didn't do any business with. And now we are as Foot Locker ecosystem. So you can really see how it's brought along. Today we had a launch of a shoe with Converse that was with a collaborator named Anderson Ballou, that was part of a collection called Collaborate that is with proceeds going back to Souls for Souls, where we're putting sneakers on. We know how many kids are in need right now, and we're putting brand new sneakers on as many kids as humanly possible.
That's dope.
So I mean, like, and Mel's brought that entrepreneurial spirit to the company, which we needed, and we've had Greenhouse only around for a year, but we're starting to bring these new companies, new creators into the ecosystem without them being afraid that we're going to take them out of business or we're going to ruin their reputation. It's really been an amazing thing to watch.
Let me ask this, we talked about like my career early on, and you talk about Mel's and people like that. I've always been mindful of, as my, career profile has grown, of like how many of us slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
Right. And what normally happens is a 21-year-old PR would go and apply at a Foot Locker, let's say, and I may not get the role for a number of reasons. Who knows? I'm not what they were looking for or whatever. But there's not, normally what happens is, and I can't speak for your process because I don't know, I'm saying any company, let's do that. Normally what happens is you got a very polite letter saying, hey, if you're lucky, like, hey, thank you for your interest.
Yeah.
Didn't work out. And I think we've all had those letters, you, me, Justin, we've actually exchanged them sometimes, right, earlier in our career. But there's never really the feedback of like, hey, this is why you're not getting this role. Or there's never really the feedback of, if you could do this, you'd be, very appealing to us for this role, right? I remember Sean Brown, who I believe Sean Brown came to me when I was at Nike years ago, and he was like, I want to work for you. And I mean this respectfully, and me and Sean talk about this all the time. I want to work for you so bad, I'll even sweep floors. I'll do whatever you need, which I respected, right? I respected the hunger. And I told him, like, Sean, I have way more qualified candidates, And what I will always give Sean Brown credit for was he said, well, can you tell me what I can do to be in a better position the next time there's an opportunity?
Yep.
Sean was a young kid then. I was blown away by even that, because most people would be like, you don't get it, you're a hater, whatever. And I told him, I said, go get some retail experience. Learn the brand, do all these things. He calls me 2 weeks later, sends me an email. Hey, I interviewed. I applied at Nike Town. Hey, I interviewed. Hey, I got the job. Tomorrow's my first day. Thank you. And then he was off, and I didn't do anything for him. Anything he's earned, he's done on his own. What I'm getting at in a long-winded way is, what do you as a CMO who's seen a lot, done a lot, empowered a lot of people. What advice can you give to that person, that like the 21-year-old Jed, the 19-year-old Jed that knows what they love? They love culture, they love sneakers, they love the shit we love, the things we've helped create, but don't know how to get into the game. Like, what advice would you give to that person that's listening?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, Sean's done okay for himself.
Yeah, he's figured it out.
And you know, he's another guy that, you know, I can see that him saying that he has these values. Also another amazing communicator, relationship guy. You know, first of all, what Sean did also was you need sponsorship and you need advocacy as you build your career. You need sponsorship and you need advocacy. Mentorship is different. You need sponsorship and you need advocacy. And something that I'm like you, I give feedback and I'm very transparent, and I love, part of what I love, nurturing careers. I love bringing people along, and I tell people all the time that most of the time companies, they're not gonna make a move because of you. They expect you to be ready when they have the opportunity. Your job is to be ready. And I really believe in that. And so much of it is attitude and again, humility. And of course the relationship piece is important, and you need to find ways to cultivate that. And whether that's through LinkedIn, getting an informal interview, etc. Like whatever it is, get in the door, but also have the right attitude, do whatever it takes. I tell people, if you have to live at home for a year or two, if you have to bartend, don't take a job your first year or two or three because it's going to pay. Don't take a job you don't want because it's going to pay you. I understand if you have to do that, you got to do it. But I would much prefer live at home, do whatever you have to do to make ends meet, and intern or work part-time. And we have people in our company who are great examples of this. Get in the door. Get in the door. It might not be the position you want to. Nike Town's an amazing example. Retail was have the humility to get in the door. Do what it takes. Don't be big. Don't think you're bigger than that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, even if you are, don't think it. Just you know, and so, by the way, I have to tell you this story because you're going to laugh hysterically. Because so last night, I won't tell the person's name. At 10:22, I get a phone call last night, and then I didn't know the number. Not going to answer it. I get a text. Hey Jed, I'm sorry if I caught you at a bad time. My name's blank. I'm 22. I just graduated from college. I'm working on a great idea, and I think you might be interested in it. Would you be cool if I shared a deck with you and got your feedback? 10:7. There's actually 10:17. I take it back. 10:17 last night. Text me. I turned to my 16-year-old. I'm a Celtics fan. I turned to my 16-year-old son. I'm like, oh, look at this. This is. And I'm like, first of all, I'm not. I wrote, hey, name. I'm not going to even ask how you got my number with the laugh out loud emoji, but you did. So thanks. I'll shoot it over. And by the way, Rocket Reach and the white pages are gold mines. I just wrote, hey, way to be resourceful. Looking forward to checking out the idea.
Figured it out.
Oh,
figured it out.
Figured
it out. Listen, I you know, what I've realized is, you know, and I think, you know, people that are listening to this, you're listening to two people. There weren't any, you know, you didn't have this career plan of like, I want to be a CMO in 10 years, right? And if I'm going to do that, that means I got to do this by this time. Or I wasn't like, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur or a partner. It was like, I want to work in the things I'm passionate about. I want to work in the things I love, and I want to work in things that I can potentially be good at, right? Yeah. And a lot of times, and you just referenced this, a lot of times that doesn't match up, that passion doesn't match up with money, with the most money, right? But we're living in such an exciting time that if you can do whatever it is you do, if you could do it really well, you can make a living. I don't care if that's a dancer, a DJ, a photographer, you can make a living if you're good enough at it, right?
And it's that investment in yourself. And I think a lot of times people are like, no, I got to get this job because I got to pay this rent. I got to do this. And I understand that. That's a real life, real life shit, real life decisions we have to make. But I can't overstate or double down enough on what you just said about like putting in the time, committing yourself to whatever it is you want to do, man.
Yeah.
Early on.
I've had 3 opportunities where I didn't interview, but I had 3 opportunities through relationships, et cetera, where were in the past year and a half, 2 years, to be CMOs of significant companies. Before I was a global CMO here, that paid more, transparently.
If we're being transparent, I believe I called you about one of them. Like,
probably. I'll give you an example. One was in the cannabis space.
Yep.
Really trendy space right now. Doesn't feel right to me. Doesn't feel like my brand. I know a little bit about that marketing and that industry a little bit, and people who have struggled in it for different reasons because of a lot of actual there's a lot of legal things that prohibit people from being as creative or even driving initiatives the way they want to. But it just didn't feel, it felt off brand for me, personally speaking. There's been others, and so you gotta make sure you're gonna be happy where you're gonna go, and it's the grass is always greener is a tough place to think to be there, and I always tell people, run to, don't run away. Run to, do not run away. And
you know what? I don't know if I told you this, Jed. When I left Nike, when I made the decision to leave Nike to go to Beats by Dre,
I remember talking to you in Vegas about that.
Yeah, I remember. And Trevor Edwards, who was the CMO at the time, I was, again, because I think one thing you and I have in common, one of the many things we have in common is, and we value this now as leaders and executives, is I always believe it's super important, leave the right way. Because you never know who's going to be where. You know how many times I've called you and been like, Jed, do you know this person? I see their name on the resume. Or, Jed, do you have anyone that's been great, but you had to let go for some reason? So it's a smaller world than people realize.
Yeah.
Right? So it's always important to leave the right way. When I had I just wanted to give Trevor Edwards just the respect and the courtesy to tell him, hey, I've decided to take on another role somewhere. I want to thank you for the opportunity. That was it. I wasn't looking for a counter for anything.
I remember what he said, by the way.
He said what you said. He said, I'm going to ask you one question. Are you running to or are you running from? And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And he's like, are you running to a potentially great opportunity? Because that's all it can be at this point. We don't know for sure. Do you think it could be a potentially great opportunity? Or are you running from a situation you're trying to get away from? And he was like, because where I messed up, which is where I super respect about him, where I messed up, this is Trevor speaking, is the conversation you and I should be having right now isn't that you're leaving. It's how do I prepare you for my seat in 10 years? So I always go to that, like, and it resonated with me when you said that. It's like, making sure you leave the right way, making sure you're taking the right opportunities. To your point, I had a friend that's a friend of both of ours, I won't say his name, who called me and said exactly that. He said, hey, listen, there's a real opportunity. I have some intel that, this state is going to legalize cannabis. We can do this. And my response to him was like, man, that sounds great. I hope and I'm sure you'll be successful if you do it. I just can't do it. It's just not right for me. It's just not right for my brand. But I wish you all the luck. And I think it's almost, I call it catching butterflies. You can't do everything great.
Yeah.
You can't do everything great. You got to do your thing. You got to do your thing great. So
I don't know if I would do this. I don't know if I would do this. I don't know if I would do this as well as I think I do my job today. There's that confidence. If I think I do my job today, or if I was working for Bed Bath & Beyond or a consumer product company that I didn't love the product, I can't imagine. I mean, there's a piece of what we do and that I think transfers over to a lot of to companies, and I think I'd be good, because of experience. But again, I what differentiates you and me from a lot of other people is that I think that we're functionally good at our job, and we love and understand the culture, the people involved. We can talk shop like with the best of them. I can't really do that with cannabis or betting,
Right. No disrespect to those fields, just
Totally.
for your thing, for your journey, for sure. So Jed, before I get you out of here, what are you excited about? What you can share with us. What are you excited about for Foot Locker Inc.? What are you excited about for you in that role? Maybe just specific to your team and some of the things you're working on. Like, what has you really excited for? In a time and during a time where there's not a ton to be excited about. Is there anything you're looking forward to or excited about that you and your team are working on that you can share?
I'm really proud of the work that the product development team has done over the last year and a half. And as you know, in footwear, it takes a really long time for projects to come out. And we have over the next 12 to 18 months, I feel like and not everything is going to hit, by the way. Not everything's going to hit. Not everything's going to hit. It's okay. But I feel like we have some terrific initiatives and that we have coming out. And I feel like we've just changed we've changed a lot of the trajectory of the company and the relationship that we have with our partners and we've evolved as a company in the right way, and so I'm really excited about that. I'm also really excited, personally speaking. I'm much more connected to the business than I ever have been, and I think that is crucially important. And I still have aspirations. I'm not done. I still have an entrepreneurial spirit, and I want to lead at the highest of levels, whatever that means. And so the closer I am to the business, the closer I am to the P&L, the more that I'm going to learn, and I'm excited, and the more I'm going to be ready when the opportunity. Again, the same advice goes to me.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's gonna create an opportunity for Jed Berger, but they're gonna expect me to be ready for it if they have that opportunity. So my job is to get ready, and I want to be, and the closer I am to the business and the closer I am to the P&L, the more I'm going to be ready for what's next and for me. And I'm excited about that. I'm honestly excited, challenged by it.
I love it, Jed. As you say, being ready for the opportunity when it presents itself. I don't know if and when it'll present itself, but next time I'm able to be on a basketball court with you, I'm ready to be a much nicer person. I've matured.
I've been waiting so long to get on your podcast. They'd say that.
That's not where I thought you were going with it, by the way. I didn't think you were going to.
It was kind of therapeutic. I feel better. Today was a rough day. I feel good. I feel good now.
Hey, listen, man, Jed, I know you're super busy, man, and a lot going on, work-wise, family-wise, all that stuff. So I appreciate you making the time. I'm sure I'll text you 27 times for, a night during the playoffs. What an incredible playoffs we're having. But want to thank you. I can't wait for you to see the show. I think you'll be happy with it. I think people that are listening and viewing, a lot of nuggets, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I love that. I love shooting shit. So thank you very much.
Appreciate you, brother. Good seeing you.